Chapter 1. The Promise. Lena sat by the window, watching the raindrops race down the glass. Her fingers gently traced the outline of the photo on the desk in front of her. It was a picture of her and her brother, Yusef, taken on the day they graduated from high school. Both of them were smiling widely, full of hope for the future, their whole lives ahead of them. But that was before everything changed. Lena remembered how their lives had turned upside down when their mother was diagnosed with cancer. It was a disease that slowly, painfully, took away everything they had known. Her mother, once vibrant and full of life, became weak, confined to her bed. Lena and Yusef did everything they could to take care of her. But no matter how hard they tried, the sickness didn't let go. Their mother had always been their biggest supporter. She had encouraged them to dream big, to reach for the stars. When they were younger, she would tell them stories about doctors who saved lives and made a difference. Lena and Yusef used to laugh and say that they wanted to be doctors too, just like the ones in the stories. But deep down, Lena knew it was more than just a childhood dream. She and Yusef had always wanted to make their mother proud. And now, as they stood at the threshold of adulthood, they knew what they had to do. It was the night their mother passed away that they made a silent promise to each other. They would become doctors. They would do everything they could to help others, to save lives, just as doctors had once saved their mother. They would turn their grief into something powerful, something that could make a difference. Lena wiped away a tear as she remembered that night. Yusef had held her tight, his voice shaky as he whispered, "We'll do it, Lena. We'll become doctors for Mom." And so, with that promise between them, they set their sights on the future. They knew it would be hard, and there would be moments when they would feel like giving up. But they also knew they had each other to lean on. They had to keep going for their mother. The first step was getting into medical school. Lena and Yusef studied relentlessly, pouring their hearts and minds into their studies. They were determined to make it. There were days when they both felt overwhelmed, when the weight of their grief combined with the pressure of exams seemed too much to bear. But they kept pushing forward, knowing that it was their only way forward. The day they received their acceptance letters to the medical school was a moment neither of them would ever forget. They had worked so hard, and now their dreams were starting to take shape. The excitement and joy they felt was immense, but there was also a quiet sadness in the back of their hearts. Their mother wasn't there to celebrate with them. She should have been there, cheering them on, proud of what they had accomplished. But instead, it was just the two of them, Lena and Yusef. The promise they had made to each other was all they had left of her. On the day they walked into the medical school for the first time, it felt surreal. The campus was large, filled with students and professors walking briskly between buildings. It was intimidating. But Lena felt a surge of determination as she looked at Yusef beside her. They were in this together. They spent the first few weeks adjusting to their new lives, learning the basics of medicine, studying anatomy, and understanding the human body in ways they had never imagined. The workload was heavy, and the days were long. But every time the stress felt too much, Lena would think back to that promise they had made to their mother. She would close her eyes and imagine her mother's encouraging smile. And that was enough to give her the strength to keep going. Youssef, too, was determined. He had always been the quiet one, but he was fiercely intelligent and hard-working. He excelled in his studies, and even when Lena felt like she was falling behind, he was there to support her, offering help and encouragement. They became a team in every sense of the word, sharing their struggles and triumphs. Every success felt sweeter because they were doing it together. But it wasn't just the academics that challenged them. They had to deal with the emotional weight of their mother's passing. They both missed her every day, especially during moments of doubt. There were times when Lena would look at Youssef, and she could see the same sadness in his eyes, the same grief that never seemed to fully leave them. Yet, despite their sorrow, they both knew they couldn't afford to stop. They couldn't let the pain stop them from achieving their goal. One evening, after a particularly difficult week of exams, Lena and Youssef sat in their small apartment, eating dinner together. It was the first time in days they had been able to relax, and even then, their conversation drifted back to their mother. "I wish she could see us now," Youssef said quietly, breaking the silence. Lena nodded, her heart aching. "She would be so proud of us. She would have been our biggest supporter," he said softly. "But we're doing this for her, right?" Lena looked at him and smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "Yes, we are. Every step of the way, we're doing this for her." They spent the rest of the evening talking about their future as doctors, imagining the day they would walk across the stage to receive their degrees. They both knew that it wouldn't be easy, but they were ready for the challenge. After everything they had been through, they were stronger than they had ever been before. As the night came to a close, Lena stood by the window again, looking out at the city lights. She could feel her mother's presence in her heart, and she knew that wherever she was, she would always be with them, guiding them through the hardest of days. And with that thought, Lena made a vow to herself. She would finish medical school, she would become a doctor, and she would make her mother proud, no matter what. Chapter 2. The Struggle and the Triumph. Lena woke up early the next day, her eyes still heavy from the long night of studying. The excitement of medical school had faded somewhat, replaced by the overwhelming pressure of exams, assignments, and constant challenges. She knew it was all part of the process, but that didn't make it any easier. The hours of studying were exhausting, and she was starting to feel the weight of her promise to her mother more heavily than ever. Every time she looked at Youssef, she saw the same determination in his eyes, but also the same fatigue that she felt. They were both trying so hard, pushing through the pain and the exhaustion, but it wasn't always easy. She glanced at the clock on her bedside table and groaned. It was already time to get up. Her classes were starting soon, and there was no time to waste. She quickly got dressed in her white coat, grabbed her textbooks, and headed out the door. At the medical school, the days were long, the curriculum was tough, and the professors expected nothing less than perfection. Every lecture was a challenge, and every assignment felt like a mountain that had to be climbed. But through it all, Lena found herself clinging to the memory of her mother, holding on to that promise they had made to each other. She would become a doctor, and nothing was going to stop her. Youssef was always there for her, despite his own struggles. He made sure to check in with her, offering support when she needed it. They would meet during lunch breaks, sometimes sharing a quiet meal together, talking about their classes or their dreams for the future. There were moments when Lena felt like she was drowning in the pressure, but Yusef's calm presence always brought her back to reality. He never let her forget why they were doing this, even when it seemed impossible. One afternoon, after a particularly tough week of studying for finals, Lena was sitting alone in the library, her eyes scanning over a stack of notes. Her brain felt like it was about to explode from all the information. The human body, diseases, medications. It was all so overwhelming. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages of her anatomy textbook. She sighed deeply and closed the book, letting her head fall into her hands. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered to herself. "It's too much. I'm not strong enough." Just then, her phone buzzed with a message from Yusef. "I'm outside. Let's go for a walk." Lena smiled, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and headed outside to meet her brother. As soon as she stepped out of the building, Yusef was there, waiting for her with his usual calm smile. "Tough day?" he asked, falling into step beside her. "Yeah," Lena admitted, her shoulders sagging. "I don't know if I'm cut out for this. The exams are getting harder, and I feel like I'm losing my grip on everything." Yusef nodded. "I get it. It's been tough for both of us. But we're doing this together. We've always been there for each other, and we can't give up now." Lena felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at him. "I know, but sometimes it feels like I'm not doing enough, like I'm not living up to the promise we made." Yusef stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious. "Lena, you are doing enough. We're both doing enough. It's not about being perfect. It's about giving everything we have, even when it's hard. And we've come so far. Remember what we've been through. We're stronger than we realize." Lena's heart swelled with gratitude for her brother. She had always known that they were a team, but in moments like this, when the weight of the world felt too much to bear, she truly understood what that meant. "You're right," she said softly, her voice shaking a little. "We've come so far, we can't give up now." Yusef smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Exactly. And we're not alone in this. We're doing this for Mom. She would be proud of us. And I know she's watching over us." Lena nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. The road ahead was still long, and there would be many more obstacles to overcome. But with Yusef by her side, and with the memory of their mother in her heart, she knew she could keep going. The next few months were a blur of exams, practicals, and sleepless nights. There were moments when Lena felt like giving up, when the pressure felt unbearable. But she kept pushing forward, drawing strength from the promise she had made. And little by little, she started to see the results of her hard work. It wasn't easy, but as the end of their first year at medical school approached, Lena and Yusef could see the light at the end of the tunnel. They had survived their first year, and they were stronger for it. Their mother's memory still burned brightly in their hearts, guiding them through every challenge. One evening, as they sat together in their apartment, Yusef looked at Lena with a proud smile. "We did it. We made it through our first year. I know Mom would be so proud of us." Lena smiled back, her heart full. "We couldn't have done it without each other." They sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of their achievements sink in. They had made it this far, and no matter what came next, they knew they would continue to fight, side by side, until they reached their goal. Because they weren't just doing this for themselves. They were doing it for their mother. And that was all the motivation they needed.